Have you ever wondered why a single night, a single moment, can sometimes change the course of someone's entire life? The story of One Night with the CEO Became the Love of His Life is not just about luxury or power. It's about human psychology, about the way men can become deeply obsessed with a woman when she awakens something in him that money, status, or fame could never touch. A man who has everything but still feels empty will find himself captivated by the woman who gives him what the world cannot: authenticity, warmth, and connection. That one night was never about physical closeness. It was about emotional truth, about two people colliding at a point of vulnerability. And when a man feels a woman sees him not as a CEO, not as a wealthy figure, but as a human being, his entire perception of love changes forever. You see, men may chase beauty, status, or temporary desires, but what they truly obsess over is the woman who makes them feel alive, the woman who reflects their hidden emotions back to them, the woman who makes them realize they are more than their reputation. And here's the profound truth most women don't realize. You don't need to chase, you don't need to beg, and you don't need to prove yourself. When you show up as your authentic self, when you dare to bring your real emotions into a moment, that is when a man sees you as unforgettable. That is why one night could change him. Because while the world admired him for his success, you reminded him of his humanity. And no man forgets the woman who brings him back to himself. Many women ask, why does he lose interest after some time? The truth is simple. Interest fades when you try to perform, when you try to become what you think he wants, instead of allowing him to meet the depth of your real self. That CEO didn't fall for her because she was the most glamorous or the most powerful. He fell because, in that night, she gave him something he had been searching for all his life: presence, care, and truth. When a man feels that, he doesn't just like you. He becomes obsessed because you give him what no one else dares to. And here's the lesson. A woman's power is not in what she gives physically. It is in what she makes a man feel emotionally. When you can create an environment where he feels safe, seen, and valued not for what he owns but for who he is, you unlock an obsession that money cannot buy. That one night became the love of his life, because it was the first time he tasted love without conditions, without judgment, without masks. And as women, the greatest strength you hold is not in being perfect, but in being real. So remember this: men will admire many, but they will fight for the one who touches their soul. One night may pass like a shadow, but when you live it with truth and authenticity, that night can become forever in his heart. Never forget, your power is not in chasing love. It is in being the love that no man can ever replace. Have you ever asked yourself why men who seem to have everything, the power, the respect, the money, the lifestyle that so many people dream of, still feel an emptiness inside that no success can fill? The truth is, behind the image of strength and control, even the most powerful men carry a loneliness that they rarely admit to. And this is where the story of One Night with the CEO Became the Love of His Life becomes so important, because it shows us how even a man who appears untouchable can become completely transformed when a woman touches the part of him that money and success cannot reach. That night, for him, wasn't about desire or conquest. It was about finally feeling seen as a man, and not just as a title. This is what most women don't always realize. Men obsess not over the woman who tries to impress them, but over the woman who sees beyond the surface. A man can have 1,000 people praising his success, but he will crave the one person who sees his fears, his dreams, and his need for love. The CEO became obsessed with her because she offered what no one else could: authenticity, warmth, and presence. She didn't try to compete with his lifestyle or act impressed by his wealth. She treated him like a human being who also needs love. And that was exactly what he had been searching for in silence. And this is where the power of women becomes so extraordinary. You don't need to try harder, be more glamorous, or prove your worth to be unforgettable to a man. What you need is to stand in your truth, to offer connection instead of performance, to allow him to feel safe enough to take off the mask he shows to the world. That one night showed him that love is not about material things, it's about emotional intimacy, the kind that makes a man feel alive. When you can give that, you don't just win his attention, you win his heart in a way that never fades. Psychology teaches us that men who look the strongest are often the ones who feel the most isolated. They are admired, but not understood. They are respected, but not deeply loved. And this is why, when a woman enters his life and makes him feel understood, he becomes consumed by her presence. He starts to crave her voice, her energy, her way of making him feel human again. That is how obsession is born, not from control or power, but from the emotional bond he cannot find anywhere else. So here is what you must remember. Your greatest strength is not in what you give physically, but in how you allow a man to feel emotionally. That CEO didn't fall for her beauty alone. He fell for the way she made him feel alive in his loneliness, the way she reminded him of what truly matters. And if you want to know why men stay, why men fight for you, it's because you give them something rare, something the world with all its power and riches could never give them. Never forget, one night of truth can be more powerful than a lifetime of performance. And when you stand in your authenticity, you don't just touch a man's heart. You become the love he cannot let go of, the love of his life. Have you ever thought about why vulnerability, something many people see as weakness, can actually become the very thing that makes a man fall deeply in love with a woman? The story of One Night with the CEO Became the Love of His Life reveals this truth, because that night was not about a perfect woman stepping into his world. It was about a woman who allowed herself to be real, to be open, and to be seen exactly as she was. She didn't try to pretend she belonged in his world of power. Instead, she brought her heart into the moment, and that became the very thing that captured him. Men don't obsess over perfection. They obsess over authenticity, over the woman who dares to show her soul. The psychology behind this is powerful. When a woman allows herself to be vulnerable, she awakens something in a man that nothing else can. Men are taught to be strong, to hide their emotions, to carry the weight of expectations, but when they meet a woman who is unafraid to express her feelings, it gives them permission to feel their own. That is why the CEO, who lived in a world where masks were everything, fell in love with her vulnerability. It was her truth that pierced through his walls, and it made him realize she was not like everyone else. What women need to understand is that men don't obsess over what you try to be, they obsess over who you truly are. He didn't remember her because she tried to match his success. He remembered her because she showed him something money could never buy: sincerity, softness, and realness. And that is where your power lies. You don't have to compete. You don't have to prove. You don't have to hide your flaws. When you embrace your vulnerability, it becomes your strength, because it creates a connection that no performance can replace. Think about it. How many women believe they need to be stronger, colder, or harder to win a man's heart? But in reality, Men are not drawn to hardness. They are drawn to the woman who makes them feel safe enough to put their own guard down. The CEO didn't fall in love with her because she had everything figured out. He fell because she let him see her humanity. And when a man witnesses that kind of honesty, he cannot forget it. He becomes obsessed, not with an image of perfection, but with the feeling of being real around her. So here is the truth you need to carry with you. Your vulnerability is not your weakness. It is your magnetism. It is what turns one night into a lifetime of love. Because no man ever forgets the woman who gives him the freedom to feel. And if you ever doubt your worth, remember this: the woman who embraces her true self will always be more unforgettable than the woman who tries to be perfect. That is how one night becomes the love of his life. Have you ever wondered why people around us always have opinions about who we should love? Yet the heart refuses to listen to society's judgment? The story of One Night with the CEO became the love of his life reflects exactly this truth, because that one night created a bond so powerful that no title, no wealth, no outside voice could define it. Society whispered that she was not enough, that she didn't belong in his world, but his emotions told a completely different story. And this is where psychology teaches us something profound. When a man feels a genuine connection, his heart will fight against reputation, against logic, against expectations, because the feeling of being truly seen and loved is stronger than the pressure of the outside world. This is why men often become obsessed with the woman who dares to stand in her truth. He didn't love her because she was from his world. He loved her because she gave him something that no one else could: freedom to be himself. And women need to realize that you don't have to prove yourself to his world. Because when a man chooses you from the depth of his heart, no opinion will matter. A man may be admired by thousands, but he will fight for the one who makes him feel understood. That night proved that love is not about fitting into a box. It is about breaking free from the chains of expectation. Think about it. How many people settle for relationships that look good on the outside but feel empty on the inside? How many times do women silence their hearts because they are afraid of judgment? Yet, the most powerful love stories happen when two people are brave enough to stand against the noise. The CEO was powerful, but he wasn't free until he allowed himself to follow the pull of his heart. And that is what women must learn. When you choose authenticity, you create a love so magnetic that it becomes impossible to ignore. Men obsess over the woman who chooses love over approval because it awakens a strength in them that they didn't know they had. He could have chosen someone who fit the perfect image, but that would have left him feeling the same emptiness. Instead, he chose the woman who gave him peace in her presence, the woman who reminded him that love is not about image, but about truth. That one night became the love of his life, not because it was perfect, but because it was real, and real is what lasts. So here is the lesson. Never let society convince you that you are not enough, because a man who sees you, who feels you, will not measure you by reputation. He will measure you by the way you touch his soul. And that is why, even against the world, one night can become forever. Be the woman who lives her truth, because when you do, no judgment will ever be strong enough to erase the love you inspire. Have you ever wondered how a single night, something so brief, can turn into a forever bond that defines a man's entire life? The story of One Night with the CEO became the love of his life reminds us that sometimes what feels temporary becomes eternal, not because of the length of time spent, but because of the depth of emotion created. That one night wasn't about attraction alone. It was about a connection so profound that it left an imprint on his soul. And psychology tells us that the moments that feel the most real, the ones that awaken emotions long buried, are the ones that we carry with us for a lifetime. The CEO had known many people, many admirers, and countless faces who praised him for his success. But what made this woman different was the way she made him feel. Men don't obsess over the women who simply look good by their side. They obsess over the women who touch their spirit in a way no one else can. That night, he didn't just see her beauty. He felt her presence, her emotions, her vulnerability, her dreams. It was in those raw, unfiltered moments that he realized she wasn't just another chapter in his story. She was the story, and this is what women must understand. You don't need years to prove your worth to a man, because when the connection is true, even one night can speak louder than a lifetime. Men are wired to crave meaning, even if they don't always admit it. They can spend years chasing distractions, but the moment they meet a woman who awakens their heart, they begin to see life differently. The CEO realized that love isn't measured by time, it's measured by depth. That is why one night became forever, because she gave him something deeper than appearances. She gave him herself. Think about how many women believe they need to hold back, to play games, to create illusions in order to keep a man's attention. But the truth is, the strongest bond comes not from strategy, but from authenticity. A man may admire many, but he will stay with the one who makes him feel alive. He will fight for the woman who doesn't just share a moment with him, but changes the meaning of that moment entirely. And that is what happened that night. She gave him a reason to believe in love again, a reason to see beyond his success, a reason to let go of his loneliness. So remember this: your worth is not in how long you've known someone, it is in the impact you make when you show up fully as yourself. One night of authenticity can become the foundation of a lifetime of love, because no man ever forgets the woman who changes the way he sees himself. That is how one night became the love of his life. And if you ever question your power, know this: you don't have to wait for years to prove you're unforgettable. You only need the courage to be real, because real love never needs time to last forever.